I've been inspired a number of times in my life. I reckon the first time I can think about was in the second grade. I was sitting about 2 seats back of this gorgeous girl that had this ponytail, and it was Angela, and, she captured my heart in the second grade. And I never had another serious girlfriend and married her and have, been married to her for 45 years and have 2 wonderful children and 7, fabulous grandkids. And, another time that stands out in my life is my only hero in my life, was my high school coach, Coach Taylor. Next to my parents, he had the most influence on my life. I spent thousands of hours with him. Not only did I play for him, but I worked for him in high school and college. He was such a powerful role model for me and my teammates that in high school, he gave me the privilege of actually start coaching when I was in the 10th grade. I actually coached a midget team that was 12 years old and actually took them to a midget bowl in Waycross, Georgia. We had parents, of course, that went along, to look after all of us, but I mean, I actually coached the team. I actually handled the team. It was a pretty big thing. They had teams from around the state of Georgia come, and I called the plays on the sideline. I mean, I was the head coach, and that was a pretty awesome experience for a young person. And he gave me so much responsibility, and I remember thinking in high school that, you know, I wanted to be just like him. I mean, I remember thinking in high school, and maybe this is pretty unusual for a young person, but he touched me in such a special way, and so many of my teammates and whatnot. I mean, I would walk around the halls or be in the lunchroom or be out, on the basketball court or the football field, and I'd be thinking, I said, all I want to be is just like him. If I could spend my life making kids feel good about themselves like he makes me feel, there's nothing more important that I could do for my life. That was a special moment in my life. Another special moment where I was sort of inspired was Thanksgiving, a few years after my daddy died, and left my mother with too little insurance and no will and no real savings program. And this was about 3 or 4 years after I graduated from college, started coaching. We had our 2 babies by then, and I had a $15,000 trash value policy and $100 a month going into a teacher's credit union, making 3 or 4%, whatever they were paying back then. And I went to a family reunion, and even though my mother had not been left with any money, and even though she, like most mothers in the 50s, didn't have an education and worked in the home and didn't work for an income in the marketplace out there, we didn't grow up with any money. And so I didn't really think about anything about that. I mean, I had the greatest life in the world. I had 2 younger brothers, one a junior in high school and one in the 6th grade. And so mother had to go out and work. But anyway, at this family reunion in Cairo, Georgia, my accountant cousin from Tallahassee came up to lunch. And after lunch, he sat down and showed me the concept of buy term and invest the difference. And I was making maybe $6,400 a year. I had a parent of one of my football players who was in the insurance business with Gulf Life Insurance Company, asked to come see me. And of course, I gave him an appointment, and I didn't know anything about insurance. I didn't want to know anything about insurance. I didn't want to know anything about investments. I want to know everything about football. I was trying to win football games. And so he asked me the question most insurance agents are taught to ask is, how much can you afford for insurance? And having a wife and 2 children, I knew I needed insurance. And he said, well, for that $20 a month, you can buy $15,000 worth of whole life. And so I bought it. My cousin showed me the concept of buy term and invest the difference, and showed me I could get $150,000 worth of term for the same thing I was paying for 15. And showed me that there's a period in your life when you have kids, and you have a mortgage, and this decreasing responsibility theory thing. He didn't have the words like we had it later on, but he was explaining that to me. And it just, I was inspired. I mean, it was just, it just bowled me over. Another time in my life that I was inspired was in 1969. I'd been part-time for 2.5 years, and I'd saved over $42,000, part-time income. And for a coach, that's like today, I mean, it was mind-boggling. It changed my life. The president of ITT Financial Services, Frank Pearson, kept talking to me about coming full-time. He says, "Art, you've got a gift. You know, you ought to come full-time." And every time he said that, it just made me sort of nauseated, because here I was a coach. I'd walk down the street and people would say, "Hi, coach. How you doing, coach? Great win last night. How's the team going to be this year, coach?" But boy, you start selling insurance and walk down the street, people do cross the street to avoid talking to you, right? Is that right? I mean, every public opinion poll ever taken about what people think about different professions out there that we live in. Isn't that correct? Right on the bottom of the list is funeral home directors and used car salesmen and insurance agent. Ain't that right? And so he kept talking to me about coming full time, and I said, "You got to be kidding me! I got the world by the tail here. I'm making, $10,700 a year coaching, which I love to do. I don't want to do nothing else, and yet now I've got a part-time job where I can save $10,000 or $15,000 a year. I've already saved $40,000. I got the world by the tail. If I don't make a sale, I mean, I'm under no pressure because I'm living off my coaching income, I mean, what more could I want? You think I'd get that and go full-time? You crazy." I met him for the third time at the Holiday Inn in Charleston, South Carolina, and he said, "Art," I kept telling him that, those 2.5 years, I said, "Frank, y'all are so stupid. You're hiring the wrong kind of people. By hiring people full-time, you don't get anything but the lowlife. I mean, people that can't do nothing else for a living. I mean, that's just the way it is." And I said, I used to run up down that basketball court for 3 hours and make $12 refereeing a basketball game. I'd go out there and umpire a baseball game and put those darn chest protector on and those shin guards and that heavy old mask, sit out there in that hot sun, sweat like a pig for 3 hours and make $5. And you're telling me I can go out there and hire a person and we don't sell policies, we don't ask you to spend more money, we give you the same protection you now have and cut your cost 75 or 80% or take the same dollars and give you 8 to 10 times more value, and everybody's got that trash value crap? You got to be, and you mean I can go in there and spend 45 minutes and make $200, $300, $400? You got to be kidding me. I can recruit the world. I can go into a community and recruit the best people, the best centers of influence, the coaches, the teachers, the soccer moms, the businessmen and women, the ministers, everybody needs extra income out there, and I got the great. So anyway, he got so tired of hearing that in Charlotte, South Carolina, he said, "Art, I want you to come see if you can hire part-time people," because the whole industry was built on full-time, so-called professional crap, right? And so he guaranteed me $25,000, which was the money I was making for a year. And he said, "All right, I want you to see if you can come hire part-time people." I had no doubt. I was inspired. I knew that would work. Another time I was inspired is I'd been in the business 7, 8 years at that time, 2.5 years part-time. And when I went to ITT and started recruiting part-timers, I mean, here was like number 2, and we were like way up here, and we just killing everybody. I stayed with ITT for 4 years and then went to another buy-term and investigative company, Waddell & Reed, and I was a regional vice president in charge of the Southeast United States. And when I went there, they were on the bottom, the 13th region. And just in a number of months, we were like number 1, not just by a little bit, but like way out here, But after 8 years, I was so frustrated because I didn't see anybody, any company. Most of those two companies that sold a little term insurance were basically investment companies. Everybody was scared of the regulators back then. So you didn't have a company that would really go on a crusade to correct this horrible injustice, that I saw out there. And so I was inspired in September 1976. I said, I don't know if we're good enough. We probably aren't. But if some company had the courage to go out there and take on this industry, we could bring them down. Another time I was inspired is I always kept a little scratch pad by my bed when I was coaching in business. And when I'd wake up in the night thinking of something, if I didn't write it down, I'd forget the darn stuff, And so I always kept a scratch pad and a pen by my bed. And I'd been looking for a few months for something we could use for a third-party piece, you know, some person other than an A.O. Williams person that would recommend buy term and invest the difference and could explain financial services in a simple way that people could really understand it. All the books written on financial services were, you know, this thick and little bitty type and complicated words, you know, and nobody could understand the stuff, you know? And after months of just of trying to find something, getting so frustrated, one night I literally had a vision. And I sat up in the bed and I said, you know what? We're the experts. Why am I looking for somebody else to tell the story, you know, financial services and do it in a simple way that people like me, average, ordinary folks, can understand it? And I said, you know, people like me are intimidated by books. And so it needs to be like a magazine type size. And it needs to have big print and 7 grade words, you know, and lots of graphs and pictures and I sat down and literally wrote the 10 chapter titles of Common Sense. That was another time that I was inspired. And now it's happened to me again in writing the history book of our company and in seeing all the crap that people are exposed to by so-called business experts today. I just felt inspired to go talk about the beliefs and the principles that A.O. Williams was found upon. See, folks, I ain't nothing but a coach. That's all I was. I was a football coach with a PE degree, and I love coaching as much as anybody's ever loved coaching. I loved it. I didn't like it. I loved it. I coached in high school in Georgia for 7 years. I never wanted to do anything else. I loved it so I can't even tell you how much I loved it. I loved coaching A.O. Williams. I never wanted to do anything else but coach A.O. Williams. It was never a job to me. I loved getting up every day for 20 years in coaching A.O. Williams. See, I never went to college and studied business. I never went to any of these sales seminars and learned all this sales techniques. I never went to school or any seminars and studied management principles. See, folks, all I knew and all I know today is coaching. But I had some very, very strong beliefs in how you ought to build a team. I want to talk to you the next 2 days now about how you can become a coach. See, nobody wants a boss. Everybody hates bosses, but everybody wants a coach. Bosses have a way of making you feel bad. They just make you feel bad. They look at you in an ugly way. They manage by intimidations and threats, but coaches have a way of looking inside your heart. No matter who you are, looking inside your heart and making you feel special, making you feel like you can win, making you feel like you can do something important. I want to talk to you the next 2 days about how you can be the best leader you can be, how you can attract the best people in your community, how you can enjoy and love your company and love your people in a special way. How you can build the biggest team you can possibly build and how you can make the most money you can possibly make. Now, see, folks, I know you can succeed in business a totally different way. Lots of people do it. You understand that? I know that. If you put business principles first, if that's the way you build your organization, you can certainly succeed, okay? If you put money first, if that's the thing you emphasize the most, is how much money you can make first, you can certainly succeed. But you won't ever be the best you can be. Your people won't ever be the best you can be. You won't ever make as much money as you can make. You won't ever enjoy and love your people and have your people build the biggest teams they can build and make the most money they can make. See, folks, in my lifetime, I found out that you win with your heart first, not your head. That was an unbelievable thing to me because, I had all these doubts about me. I would go out with ITT and I'd go to Waddell and Reed meetings and I'd see all these guys get up there and they would spout off all these business things, and I would just sit back there and I would just sort of slide down in my desk chair a little bit, and I just said, Art, you can't ever be that good. You can't ever be that good a leader. You can't ever motivate your people and teach your people as good as that because you're just a coach. You don't have all this business knowledge. And after I won, and A.L. Williams won, and so many of my teammates won, I found out the most important thing is your heart. You win with your heart first. See, I found out you win on emotion first, not on logic. See, when you go to business schools, these professors, everything is logical. They got everything down and it sounds so good. You go to a Tom Hopkins seminar. Everything sounds so logical. He teaches you how to say this and how to ask this question, and it just sounds so logical. But after it's all over, and I'm sitting here writing this history book and thinking about how we did it, we revolutionized an industry, had mind-boggling success. I found out that you don't win on logic. You don't win on business principles. See, the difference in a great coach, a truly great coach, and an average, ordinary coach is the ability to show emotion, is the ability to show love. Let me give you 3 examples. Now, folks, if you can't tell your personal story as an example, if you can't tell your personal story and still get emotional 10 years later, 30 years later, if you've told it 10 million times, if you just tell it and there's no emotion in there, you're dead as a doornail. You already are dead. Another example, if you can't tell your people or show your people that you love them, really love them. Now, folks, that don't mean just telling them. You ought to be able to do that, okay, too. But it's the way you look at them. It's the way you talk to them. You can tell. It's just that. Do you understand that? If you can't do that, you're a dead duck. You're a dead duck. You can't be a great coach. All you'll ever be is average and ordinary. If you can't build strong, trusting relationships with people, if you're not the kind of leader that people won't trust, won't believe in, if you can't build those kind of relationships, you can't ever be a giant in business. On February 10, 1977, I want you to picture in your mind the life insurance industry, okay? The life insurance industry had 2,000 companies, over 250,000 people. They operated in 50 states, over 100 years old. They owned 60% of the assets in the United States, the largest industry in the United States at that time. They had local life underwriters associations. They had state life underwriters associations. They had national life underwriters associations. I'll tell you why that's important in a minute. They had people like Joseph Belf, this professor in Indiana, that would write a publication called the Insurance Forum. They had the ability to talk to all these 250,000 people out there. All these 2,000 companies were interconnected. Each state had its own insurance commissioner. These regulators were either 50% of them were appointed by the governor, which made them politicians, or they were elected by the people, which made them politicians. And either way, politicians are crooks, right? See, I know there has to be an honest politician out there, but I ain't found one yet. You understand that? Politicians are basically crooks. Politicians spend their lifetime not protecting the consumer, not trying to spend money wisely. because it's not their money, right? They're spending our money, right? Politicians spend their time raising money for the next election, correct? They're trying to either get reelected to insurance commissioner or becoming lieutenant governor or becoming governor, correct? And who do they solicit for their money? Their constituency. They're, in the insurance commissioner's case, the insurance industry, correct? And so these people give them the money. So who do they listen to? You got it. Now, each state had politicians. They had state legislatures, they had state senators, they had governors. Then each state had national politicians, legislatures, senators, correct? And all of these regulators and all of these politicians were owned by the industry, which owned 60% of the wealth in the United States. Now, not only that, advertising. Do you understand? These people spent millions and millions and millions and millions on advertising. Prudential and New York Life and Metropolitan and those people, do you understand? They were just as well known as Coca-Cola, Walmart, CNN. That's a picture now of this big, powerful life insurance industry. Now look on the other side. The term industry. Now, did we invent term insurance? No. Term insurance was the first kind of insurance invented back in the 1800s, right? We didn't invent term insurance. Every company had term insurance. They just didn't sell it for two reasons. They just didn't make any money, and then number two, the company didn't make the most profit, correct? And so here we were just this little old peanut out here, A.L. Williams, with 85 people, one state, and we were one day old. Okay? And now let me just give you another little way to contrast the size of this. In September 1976, when I'd had it with ITT and Waddell & Reed, and I said, I'm sick of corporate America, I want to see if I can go found a company that can take on the life insurance industry, and just see what we can do. That time I'd had the number one organization in ITT and the number one organization in Waddell & Reed, and I'd built two organizations from scratch. And I had the numbers. I mean, I could prove to them that term insurance was profitable, that we could grow the business like you can't believe. And I got in every company that had term insurance, like Kemper and Fireman's Fund and all these people. And all of them laughed me out. They said, you can't do that. The regulators won't let you do that. Most of these companies were either investment companies or they were property and casualty, automobile and homeowners insurance, stuff like this. And they were scared that if you went out, like there was a law on the books that if you replaced a cash value policy with term, that's called twisting, and you could lose your license. And they said, and I said, listen, I'm gonna go out there and tell them that cash value is a ripoff. It's the biggest screw job ever sold the American consumer. And we're gonna take them on. And every one of them said, there's no way. There's no way. It was the most frustrating, I think, 4 months of my business life. And then I picked up the phone and called Bill Atkins one day. He was in Kansas City, and I forgot all about him, but he was the president of United Investors Life Insurance Company, the life insurance company of Waddell & Reed. Waddell & Reed was owned by Continental Investment Corporation, a real estate company, and when they went under, the real estate business went down. Waddell & Reed was doing well, but they were taking a lot of our profits and, firing lots of people, and they fired him. Bill Atkins was a real crusader for term insurance. He claimed to be, and I think he was, he invented the first real permanent form of term insurance, ART, to age 100. And so I called Bill, and I said, Bill, I've had it. I'm dying. I know I'm on something so special, and I want to start a company that's really buy term and invest the difference and takes the industry on, and I can't find anybody to take our business. He said, I've got an idea. He said, I know a man that owns a little old insurance company called Financial Assurance, Joe Jack Merriman. And Bill Atkins was working for him. So I flew to Kansas City, and Joe Jack had a lot of money, and he lived, in a beautiful house, and he had a beautiful office, with antiques and those beautiful walls, and very impressive person. And so in organizing A.L. Williams, I told him, I said, I want to build a company where salespeople are king. As an example, at ITT, they paid one paycheck a month. And it always happens to poor salespeople. The home office people don't understand this. Because they get a paycheck every month. They can count on it and they pay their bills and all that kind of stuff. But a poor salesperson, sometimes you just don't make a sale until right at the end of the month, right? And the darn thing gets delayed in the mail or it gets lost in the home office, and so you hadn't been paid for a month, and then you're another month getting paid, right? Well, Waddell & Reed they paid twice a month, so they were twice as good, but it's the same thing could happen, right? And so I told Bill, I said, I want to design a pay system where you pay every day, or even every time that somebody sends a sale in, pay them, because the quicker you pay somebody, they're more apt to do it again, correct? Well, we couldn't do that, but we paid twice a week, and that was sort of revolutionary. But I kept wanting to go see the home office. It was in Minneapolis. And so after we'd resigned from Waddell & Reed, I'll tell you a little bit about that in just a minute. That was World War III. The first apps we had, I wanted to take them myself to Minneapolis and bring those checks back because I was nervous about it, And so I get on a plane, I take those apps out there, and I meet Bill Atkins in Minneapolis. Get off the airplane, get in a cab, go to the home office. And the home office was a little old brick building, not as big as this building right here, one floor. One little corner of that darn building was rented out to a real estate person. I walk in that home office with my little apps, a handful of apps, and they got 4 employees. 4 employees. And that was a shocker, I can flat tell you. But listen, let me tell you what we did. We didn't have computers and all that kind of crap, What we did, we put an app, and when you filled out an app, the RVP had a little sheet of paper about this big, and it had 4 lines on it because you had 4 levels. You had the RVP, you had the division manager, you had the district manager, and you had the sales leader. And the RVP would fill out the commissions and staple it on the application. So if he had an insurance sale and the RVP's income, let's say, was $121, and the division manager's income was $78, and the district manager was $63, and the sales leader was $173, they would actually just fill those amounts in, and they would send that stapled onto the application. Isn't that something? I got a call 4 months after we were going, and Joe Jack Merriman, the owner, called me, and he says, Art, you lied to me. He said, you'd budgeted like, that's these business people ain't got no sense. They spend hours and hours and hours on budget and all that crap. What is a budget? Who can, ain't that right? Who can look into the future and ain't that a pile of crap, right? And so all that stuff wears me out. The only thing I know is I get up and I go to work today, right? And I do everything I can do today to get better, right? And I go home tired, I go to bed, and I wake up next day and I go try to do the best I can. Ain't that right? That's the only way I know how to run a business. But anyway, we budgeted. It's crap, okay? So we picked out $1 million. I said, I think we'll pay $1 million the first year in commissions, Well, the 4th month, we'd already paid $4 million. And he called me and said, Art, you lied to me. He said, you said we were going to have to, pay $1 million. We paid $4 million. A few years later, we got up to $50-60 million a month, in income to our people, And he told me on the phone, Fast Start School started at 6:30 on Friday night. Just fixing to go 400 or 500 people down there ready for me to go rip them up for 2.5 days, And here the owner of the company says, Art, it's over. We can't take any more business. It's over. My heart sunk, And I said, Joe, please, just think about it over the weekend. This thing is so good. And one of the toughest things I had to do was go face those 250 people and say, we're going to make it. I just know, I just got a great feeling about this thing. And he did hang in there with us. But anyway, does that help you understand the magnitude of the difference now? Okay. Here was a little old peanut, folks. A little old peanut. Here we'd actually figure out our commission statements and staple it onto an app and send it into the home office. Ain't that something? attacking the largest industry in the world. They had this massive network that they could communicate everywhere instantly. Well, here we were just in one state. But 3 months after A.O. Williams was formed, I get a call from the insurance commissioner asking me to come see him. I sit down, I go in his office. Kevin King, my lawyer, was with me. He had his lawyer and a number of other people right there. He looks me across the desk. He said, "Art, you're a crook. I'm going to run you out of business. You're replacing all this cash value out there, stealing all these cash values, and I'm going to run you out of business." And he issued 85 subpoenas. Every person in A.O. Williams that was licensed in the state of Georgia got a subpoena. And he started calling them down to the state capitol. And you put your hand on a Bible and you raised your hand. You said you swear to tell the truth. They started grilling him, about A.O. Williams and our practices and all this kind of stuff. And instantly, when that happened, when he called me in and they started issuing these subpoenas, instantly, in all 50 states, like in California, where we didn't even work, we were not there, okay, you understand that? Hawaii, everywhere, instantly, they had A.O. Williams under investigation. A.O. Williams, everybody issued a subpoena to show up at the state capitol. Isn't that something? I used to think the Better Business Bureau was a pretty reputable outfit. I thought they sort of protected the consumer from sham organizations that would come in town and try to rip off the consumer, right? And one day we had this little old Better Business Bureau in a suburb of St. Louis. They issued a warning. They said, "Warning, don't do business with A.O. Williams." And instantly, this is a little old nippy thing in the suburb of St. Louis. Instantly now, this was all over every 50 state. 250,000 agents had this thing, right? Warning, don't do business with A.O. Williams. I was devastated. Then I started figuring out about the BBB, finding out a little bit about it. And all you got to do is pay like $15 a year, $20 a year to join the BBB, right? And they have a board of directors, and then the board of directors elect a president. Well, the president of that BBB was a whole life agent, which was worse than a crook, right? And so he just issued some kind of warning, right? Well, 10 years later, Mike, when we were selling business in California, every agent would have a stack of stuff about this thick on A.O. Williams, right? And they were saying, "Look here, you don't want to do business with A.O. Williams because the BBB said, Better Business Bureau, warning, don't do business with A.O. Williams." The North Carolina Attorney General was the expert on pyramids. If there was a pyramid scheme that came up in the United States, they would all funnel it to him because he was sort of the expert. So the competition owned all the politicians, and so that you know what I mean. And so they accuse us of being a pyramid. So they start sending hundreds or maybe thousands of letters to this Attorney General saying, "A.O. Williams is a pyramid. You got to stop them." Well, he investigated us for about a year, but the point is that immediately when the state attorney in North Carolina starts investigating A.O. Williams being a pyramid, it gets all over the United States. All 250,000 agents have that. Ain't that something? The state of Mississippi outlawed our product for 2 weeks, term product for 2 weeks. We lost 80% of our people in Mississippi. Headlines in the newspaper, A.O. Williams kicked out of Mississippi for 2 weeks. The next month, we had more production than we've ever had. The Massachusetts, our insurance company, Massachusetts Indemnity Life Insurance Company, Millico, it was domiciled in Massachusetts. They sent an investigator, Al Simoncini, down to Atlanta with the order of putting us out of business. He came down, lived in our home office for 6 weeks, looking through all of our files and all that kind of stuff. The main thing is, though, when they did that, okay, immediately they let the key guys know in the insurance industry, right? And they pass it to the state associations, national associations, all the companies, and immediately they say, A.O. Williams is going to be put out of business. Massachusetts is investigating him. The chief investigator of North Carolina, Barry Claus, North Carolina had gotten a lot of pressure to investigate A.O. Williams. They send their chief investigator to live in the A.O. Williams home office now for weeks, trying to find some kind of reason, technicalities, violations, so they could kick us out of business. But immediately, the whole 50 states knows and they're accumulating all this stuff. Is that unbelievable? Let me tell you something even more unbelievable. Johnny Caldwell, that guy that called me a crook and issued those 85 subpoenas, 4 years later when we started the A.O. Williams Public Company, he was on our board of directors. You know that Al Simoncini that Massachusetts sent down to put us out of business, the chief investigator for the Massachusetts Insurance Department? He went back to Massachusetts and said, those are the finest people I've ever seen. That's the best company I've ever investigated. He used to go to our fast start schools and opportunity meetings and stand up and say, these are the best people I know. You're crazy not to go. While he was with the insurance department. Is that something? Barry Claus, this chief investigator in North Carolina that came down to put us out of business, you know. 8 months later, we hired him as our chief compliance officer. Is that unbelievable, though? Does that make you proud? When I started in the business in 1967, you paid $10 for a license in Georgia. They gave you a license, a temporary license for 6 months. That's the way it ought to be, you know. Companies ought to be responsible who they recruit, right? And in 6 months, you go out and sell, then get your license. But the industry got concerned about A.O. Williams' growth, and so what they'd do, they'd go to the insurance departments and they tried to raise the fees up to $50 and $100 and $200. And then they put education requirements where you have to go spend 20 hours doing this and 30 hours doing this. And it would take not 1 day to get a license, but maybe 2 months to get a license or 3 months. Ain't that something? Ain't that something? They came up with replacement laws. You know, if you drive a Chevrolet and you wanna trade that in on a Toyota, you know, you get tired of that Chevrolet. All you do is get in your Chevrolet and you drive down to the Toyota lot and you go in there and you make a deal with a Toyota person, right? And you leave him your Chevrolet and you drive out in a Toyota. Ain't that something? That's the way it's supposed to be in this world, right? But you know, they came up with these replacement forms where you had to fill out a replacement form and they'd send you there. You'd have to take a policy, you'd have to analyze it and then show what you were going to do for them. And before you could go back to the customer, you had to send that form to the competition and give them like 20 days or 30 days before you could make a sale. Ain't that something? Ain't that something? In fact, that started happening at financial assurance. Here we were only licensed in one state. And all these states, all over the United States, were passing all these regulations. Joe Jack was so paranoid, the owner of financial assurance, that we weren't smart enough to extract all the stuff out of the policies, you know, and put them on the compare statement and send them to the company. They thought we'd leave something out and they'd put financial insurance out of business. So he started a policy analysis unit in Kansas City. And the guy that ran that was Paul Andrews. So we had to pick up our policies and put them in an envelope and send them to the policy analysis unit. And they would extract all that crap, you know, and fill out the comparison statement. Then they would send it to the thing, and they send the policies back. Ha ha. And so not only did we have to fill out comparison statements and then send it to the competition, but we sent our policies to Kansas City, and many times the policies would just disappear. They would evaporate into the air, you know. And so you would call your customer up and you'd go see him and you'd say, I ain't got your policy. I mean, and I can't tell you where it is. I mean, it disappeared. And he said, what you mean it disappeared? I said, but ain't that something? Ain't that something? But you know what? You know what? In 6 years, we became the #1 insurance company in the world. Hey, did $38 billion to Prudential's $34. But the very next year, we did $65 billion. Beat the #2 and #3 companies combined. Ain't that something? Ain't that something? Get that life insurance update handout, please. Now, folks, this is in their own words. This ain't our study, right? This is supposed to be, they claim, the largest, most significant collaboration in the history of life insurance. And if you look on the bottom of that page, it shows all those different organizations. And they studied life insurance from 1977 to 2003. Now, I don't know why they picked 1977, but I think you can probably guess, right? But look at some of their conclusions. Number 2, Term insurance is now the industry's leading life insurance product. Number 4, the current remaining distribution system is failing. In 1977, A.O. Williams started with 85 people. By 1989, we had 225,000 licensed people. In 1989, we're recruiting 20,000 people a month, 240,000 a year. A.L. Williams was number 1, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90. Now look at this is what they say now happened to the life insurance industry from 1977 to 2003. In 1977, the entire industry had 257,000 agents. By 2003, they were down to 177,000. In 2003, the whole industry, now this was over 2,000 companies now that started in 1977, the whole industry had recruited 29,968 new agents in 2003. Listen to this. Number 4, 89% of all new agents are out of business within 4 years. So that means only that out of that 29,968, all 2,000 companies recruited, we were recruiting 20,000 a month, right? Only 3,200 would survive. In 2003, all those new recruits were brought in by only 39 companies. Is that unbelievable? In the whole insurance industry, excluding A.O. Williams, only 39 companies recruited one new person. Well, buddy, if you ain't bringing new people in, you're dead, right? From 1977 to 2003, whole life premium declined from 86% to 20%. From 77 to 2003, life insurance premiums represented only 2.7% of consumer dollars. The rest going to annuities and mutual funds. Folks, this is in their words. Individual term insurance is becoming the industry's dominant product. The value, relevance of permanent life insurance is becoming marginalized. The industry has lost its credibility in face-to-face distribution. Over the last 30 years, the industry has lost 80,000 agents. Companies focused on doing well at the expense of doing good. Regulators, listen, this is mind-boggling. Regulators seek to protect the consumer. Now, was that a shocker to them, right? Ain't that something? No, ain't that something? From 1977 to 2000, industry lost 41 million policies. But look at this, the final two conclusions. The number of life insurance selling new life insurance declined from 2,000 in 1977 to 69. The number of life insurance companies recruiting new agents declined from 2,000 to 39. Folks, you did that. Don't that make you proud? I mean, don't that just absolutely tear you up? See, folks, business today is all screwed up. The arrogance and the attitude of business today just burns my butt. Yeah, there's an attitude in these colleges, these universities, these business schools, all the big companies out there, that there's a privileged class in our society. There's these precious few people that are born different, born special, born gifted. And that these special gifted people deserve all the big success and all the big rewards. Do you understand, folks? That is the thinking in the business world today. Business today believes that the most important assets to winning are IQ, talent, college degrees, MBAs. Business today believes that you can measure things by tests. You can measure potential, you can measure ability, you can measure personality, you can measure leadership. Ain't that a pile of it? There ain't nobody ever designed a test that can measure the heart, right? You know what? Folks, there's not a major company in the United States that would hire Art Williams to be its CEO today. Not one based on my resume. Football coach, PE degree. And I ain't nothing but a double stud, right? Hey, now, in addition, hey. Now, in addition to the business community, got that screwed up, arrogant kind of thinking, you got this Hollywood crowd, right? The beautiful people out there, right? You know, I love to watch movies and I love to go to watch TV, right? And at the end of the movie, the good-looking guy always gets the gal. Ain't that right? Ain't that right? I mean, you spend hours watching movies and TVs, and at the end of the movie, this good-looking guy, 6'3", slim body, slick back hair,
beautiful smile, gorgeous teeth. Ain't that right? White, long sleeve starched shirt with cufflinks. Ain't that right? Wingtip shoes. Ain't that right? Great tennis player. You watch that for hours. And then at night, you walk into the bathroom. And hey, ain't that right? And you look in the mirror. And you say, well, throw up. Ain't that right? Ain't that right? See, folks, hey, listen to me, listen to me. Listen to me, folks, listen to me. See, a coach believes it's what's inside that counts. See, a coach would rather have character than college degrees. A coach would rather have desire than dress for success. A coach would rather have toughness than a big IQ. A coach would rather have loyalty than talent. A coach believes the only test that counts is when you put the uniform on a person, how he performs out there on the field. Well, business today spend 100% of their time teaching business principles, teaching management principles, teaching sales techniques, teaching how to make a profit, teaching how to budget, teaching how to manage expenses. See, folks, I believe with everything that's in me that if you sell the money first, if when you recruit a person, if the thing you talk about first is how much money you can make, you've already lost. I believe if you sell business principles first, you've already lost. I believe if you sell sales techniques first, if you spend your time first with a new recruit teaching them sales techniques, you've already lost. I believe if you teach people how to make a presentation first, how to close a sale first, how to get data from financial needs analysis first, how to prospect first, how to recruit first, do you teach them the guidelines for promotions first, how to get a license first, how to dress for success first, how to get referrals first, what not to say to prospect first, what to say to prospect first, how to make a great first impression first. If you talk about ownership first, if you talk about the size and strength of your company first, if you talk about compliance first, you've already lost. See, I believe you win with your heart first, not your head. You know, Vince Lombardi, one of the all-time great coaches, he was dying of cancer, and the last business group he spoke to, hundreds of business executives out there, and he said, I'm going to tell you today the secret to winning in business. Now, all these people, there was a hush that came over the room, and all these people sat on the edge of their chair, and they wanted to hear the secret. And Coach Lombardi said, the secret to winning in business is heart power. You capture a person's heart, you capture the person. You've got to find a way to make your people fall in love with your company. Andrew Carnegie, another giant in business, said, you must capture and keep the heart of a man before his brain can do its best. You see, folks, my dad died at 48 of a heart attack. Mother left with too little insurance, no will, no real meaningful savings program. And then I had Angela and 2 kids, and I had a $15,000 whole life policy, $100 a month going to my teacher's credit union. I was making, right when I bought that, $6,400 a year. Eventually got up to $10,700 a year. Prudential's average size death claim was $4,000, and the industry's average death claim was $6,000. And so here I would have left my wife after paying some expenses and funerals and all that kind of stuff, maybe less than a year's income or a year and a half's income, And so I first began to understand, that, the situation they'd put my mama in. And then I understood that, boy, my cousin showed me how to get $150,000 of term insurance for the same money. Showed me the concept of a mutual fund. See, back in 1967, folks, there were only a handful of mutual funds. That was not a real popular thing back then. how I could put $100 a month that I was getting a little old 3 or 4% return on, and I could put it with a pool of other people's money, and we could hire professionals to manage that money. And based on the past performance, these things made 10% and 12%. And then I saw something that I never forgot. Even 40, that was 1967 to, what's it, 205. How many years is that? It's a bunch, 38 years, let's say. 38 years, folks, I've never gotten over this. This was like a bolt of lightning hit me, the magic of compound interest. I mean, how you can put $1,000 at 5%, $1,000 invested one time at 5% for 70 years, that's like $30,000. If you put $1,000 and you can get a little bit more interest, let's say 10% more, that's over $750,000. That just blows me away. I do not understand it. It sounds totally phony, right? Then if you put $1,000 at 12%, that's $2.7 million, just 2% more. I saw that and that blew me away. It shattered my life. That was Thanksgiving, 1976. 3 days later, I go back and I said, something my cousin ain't shown me. I went to the Bradley Memorial Library in Columbus, Georgia. I started reading, and they said, cash value, you lose if you die, so rip off, buy term, invest the difference, the only way to go. And I started talking to my coaching friends and my teachers' friends in the teaching lounge. Found out they had the same crap I had. Wiped me out. 3 weeks later, folks, this is scary. I went to a PTA meeting. I bet you in my 7 years coaching, I didn't go to 2 PTA meetings. I went to a PTA meeting 3 weeks later. At the break, I meet a guy by the name of Forrest Smith, who was a division manager with ITT Financial Services. I asked him, his son didn't play football, so I didn't know him. I asked him what he did. He said, we sell term insurance and mutual funds. And I said, you got to be kidding me. So he offers me a part-time job. I sign up. Then you had to pay $100, $10 for the insurance license, $90 for the securities license. And being slow mentally, it took me 4 months to get my license. And so all that 4 months, nobody ever showed me how much money you made. And but all that 4 months I was studying, and I kept having all these things hit me. I said, how can somebody be allowed to go sell a savings program that you lose if you die? How can that exist in these United States? I just don't understand that. How can somebody like my assistant coach with a wife and a couple of kids, how can an agent go in and give him a burial policy, $10,000, when he could sell him $150,000 for the same thing? How can that exist? I didn't understand it. Everybody had the same crap I had. And I just couldn't figure all this out. And everybody I kept talking to was in the same situation my daddy and my mama was in, and that Angela and I were in. And 4 months now later, after I applied for my license, I get ready to go in and make my first sale. I go to my assistant coach. I remember I used to do this part-time income when you're making $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 just to make a little extra money to take your family out to lunch after church on Sunday, to have a date with Angela, like twice a month, to pay for a babysitter and go to show. When you're making $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, that's something you have to sort of think about, right? And so I was always doing things for extra income, run up and down a basketball court for 3 hours making $12. One year, the coaches and I got an idea about selling Christmas trees. We had to come up here in North Carolina, by the way, and get Christmas trees, and you truck them down to Thomasville, Georgia, and you put them out on a lot for 2 weeks. You sat out there at night freezing your butt off, and we divided up our money, and we made $50, but that provided Christmas, So nobody ever showed me the money. And I was ready to go make my first sale. I go in there, and in 45 minutes, my assistant coach had $10,000, and he had something like, $50 or $100 a month going into a teacher's credit union. So in 45 minutes, I explained to him the decreasing responsibility theory, you lose your cash value if you die, all this kind of stuff. And wound up giving him for the same money $100,000 worth of insurance and putting $100 in a mutual fund. Now, folks, I'd never sold anything. I didn't think anybody would buy anything from an old football coach, number one. I walked in with my Bermuda shorts, and my coaching shirt, and so I was so thrilled making a sale. You understand? I was walking out of the house 6 feet off the ground, I mean, his wife was hugging me and kissing me, and he was hugging me and kissing me, because I just saved their life, right? And so I walk out of the house 6 feet off the ground, and we get in the car, and my manager said, all right, let's go have a cup of coffee and talk about what you did. And he said, hey, how many years ago was that? 38 years ago? He said, you just made $243. Folks, I can't tell you. It is just, my vocabulary is not capable of telling you how that bowled me over. I didn't believe a company would be so stupid to pay me $243 for going in there for 45 minutes, taking the same money he's now spending and give him 8 to 10 times more value. And I used to run him down that basketball court for 3 hours and make $12. You've got to be kidding me. And in 2.5 years, I saved over $42,000. My daddy worked 30 years and never saved anything close to something like that. And so as I'm rethinking my life, I said, what I had going for me was I loved it. I believed in the rightness of what we were doing. I believed in the goodness of what we were doing. At one time in AOE is when I made the agreement with Frank Pearson, the president of ITT Financial Services. I was going to try to recruit part-time people. I would go out and recruit people. There was only one level of override, just me. Okay, everybody else was salespeople. That's the way the business is basically run even today. And so I would go recruit somebody, and I would have to go field train them and build relationships with them and all that kind of stuff, right? And so I would spend 5 weeks in Columbus recruiting people, and then I would go to Denver, Colorado. At 27 years old, when I went full-time, that's the first time I'd ever gotten on an airplane. So I would go once every 6 weeks to Denver. I'd spend a week out there, and all the brains would analyze what I'd done, because we were just killing everybody. Then I'd go back to Columbus, and for 5 weeks, I was recruiting, field training, and licensing people and all that kind of stuff, And they'd send some brains down there and look at it. And then we were just killing everybody. And then they said, well, Art, it might just be because you're coach of the year and everybody knows you in Columbus, Georgia. Let's send you somewhere else and see if it works. So they sent me to Phoenix, Arizona for 3 weeks. Took an organization out there that hadn't recruited anybody. And in 3 weeks, we were zooming like that, again. And so as we began to build A.O. Williams, 8 years later, and build this company where salespeople are king, and we were just exploding, I began to worry that the further removed from me, because when I recruited somebody in the business, you got the religion. I mean, buddy, I told you about the goodness of A.O. Williams, and I would tell my personal story, and I would show you and demonstrate to you, how you do this business with your heart. And it worried me that that message was getting watered down, the further removed from me that we were as we began to expand to Florida and Alabama and Texas and Ohio. And so for about 5 years in there, I had a fast start school every 6 weeks. And every new recruit would drive to Atlanta, Georgia. And it would start on 6:30 Friday night and wind up at 12 o'clock on Sunday. And I spent maybe 15 or 16 hours myself, speaking to everybody. But the first session at 6:30 on Friday night, this was my presentation for 45 minutes. And I say, okay, now put your pen down, put your eyes on me, and don't take it off of me for the next few minutes. Now, I want to tell you something, and I'm dead serious. If the thing that got you involved in A.O. Williams is how much money you can make, if the thing that gets you most excited about this A.O. Williams opportunity is how much money you can make, and there's no sin in making a lot of money, okay? In A.O. Williams, the more people you help, the more money you make, okay? But if the thing that excites you the most in A.O. Williams, the thing you see the first in A.O. Williams that gets you the most excited is how much money you can make, then don't let the door hit you in the butt. You're not our kind of person, and you're not going to screw this thing up. It's too good. See, I believe you win with your heart, not your head. I believe you win on emotion, not on logic. Now, fellas, look at me loud and listen to me loud and clear. Any dum-dum can get a license. You understand that? There's nothing magical in getting a license. Any dum-dum can learn how to extract stuff from an insurance policy. You understand that? Any dum-dum can learn how to read a rate book. Any dum-dum can learn all the business principles. You understand that? All that takes is a little time and a little effort. But the difference in the $100,000 a year person and the $5,000 a year person is the way you feel about what you're doing. It's the way you feel about what you're doing. You win with your heart, not your head. Let me give you 4 examples. We had a guy by the name of Dennis Richardson who was a giant in our company. He's the guy that really popularized opportunity meetings. He was just magical in front of people. And he was in Houston, Texas, and he was just exploding. His organization just exploding. And I was having super seminars, we called them at that time, these meetings around the country. We had a super seminar in San Antonio. And I asked Dennis to speak on how to build an opportunity meeting. And so a lot of people, had him as a real hero in the company, and so a lot of people came to San Antonio. We had a huge crowd down there. And so I was sitting in the meeting and out there with the hundreds of people, and Dennis Richardson gets up and he starts talking. He said, I read a book that I recommend all you read, and it's on different kind of personalities. If you're going to, recruit people effectively, you got to know people, and people are different. And there's type A people, and you got to talk to them this way. And they're type B people, and you got to talk to them this way. And they're type AB people, and you got to talk to them this way. And I was sitting out there stunned. Because, see, I don't know but one kind of person, and that's people don't like to be screwed. And so I raised my hand, and I say, time out. It's time for a break. I was sitting back there, and I took him out behind the barn. And, I know I look like a nice, warm, fuzzy, wonderful guy, but I can chew you with the best of them. And I get him out behind the barn, and I said, Dennis, that's the biggest pile of crap I've ever seen. I said, we put you on a pedestal in this company, made you a hero, and I told people you were going to tell them how to run an opportunity meeting, and I wanted you to tell them how you did it, and you go read some book and telling people some crap. I said, if you ever do that again, I'll fire your butt. Had another fast start school, and Art Burgess was a speaker, good man, and he was talking about closing sales and all that kind of stuff, and he had gone to one of these Tom Hopkins sales seminar crap, and he had learned how to close a sale, and so it got down to his part. I was sitting out there and a few hundred people, and he got down to closing a sale, and he said, I want to show you a little trick I learned at this seminar I went to. He said, when you're taking the application, when you get ready for them to sign the app, that little lump comes to your throat. It's a little hairy moment there. And the way to ease into that is, people are nice people. What you do is you just drop the pen. And when you drop the pen, instinctively, the person across the table picks it up. And then while they pick it up, then you take your app and you just turn that app around that way and they sign out. And so that time I didn't even take him behind the barn. I raised my hand and I said, wait a minute. See, when you're right, when you know you're right, when you know the goodness of what you're doing and the rightness of what you're doing, when you believe it in your heart, you don't need tricks. You don't need gimmicks. I said, the only way I know how to close a sale is I talk and I talk and I talk, and then I say, how does it sound? And if he says no, Then I just talk and I talk and I talk, and I asked him how it sounds now, you know? See, you don't need, hey, when you've got it in your heart, when you believe in the rightness and the goodness, you don't need tricks, right? I used to tell those people at Friday night at 6:30, I said, look, let me tell you what to watch for. Don't worry about the business. Watch the speakers. Feel the emotion. See the sweat popping out on their brow or their lip. Look at the kind of people you see on the stage. Look at the kind of people you see at the break. And sometime during this 2.5 days, if you don't have a feeling that comes over you that says, man, I can't believe this. This is unbelievable. This is too good to be true. If you don't have those kind of feelings, don't let the door hit you in the butt. You're not going to make it. But if you do, don't worry about anything else. Everything else will take care of itself. Any dum-dum can do the business stuff. See, you don't need tricks and gimmicks. You don't need to go to sales seminars. You don't need to read books from people who don't know nothing. You gotta believe in what you're doing. You win with your heart, not your head. You don't need fancy presentations and beautiful pictures and if you got that kind of stuff, that's okay, but you don't need it, right? Well, what if you're at a restaurant or you're at a football game and you don't have your briefcase there, your presentation? What if all you got is a football program or a napkin? If you got it inside, you probably can give the greatest presentation you've ever given. Let me give you an example. Say you got a napkin. You got a guy that's, let's say you're 25 years old, Bill, and you're spending $100 a month on your insurance and investment program. So you have a program called whole life insurance where you pay for two things, but you only get one. See, you pay for two and you only get one. You've got $100,000 worth of insurance here, and anytime you die, they're going to pay you $100,000. Then you've got a savings element for that $100 that you're giving to this insurance company, let's say Prudential each month. You've got a savings element called cash surrender value. They always forget this little S here, okay? Cash surrender value. Now, there's a lot of things wrong with cash surrender value, okay? Life insurance is the worst way to save money in the history of the whole universe by 1,000,000 times, okay? But let me just give you three. Number one, the FTC said at 20 years, the average return is 1.3%. Then, if you want your own money, you know, if you go ask the insurance company to let you have some of your cash values, they will, but they charge you 7 to 8% to borrow your own money. But the third one is worse than all those combined, is you lose it if you die. Did you hear me? You lose it if you die. That means, folks, at age 65 down here, okay, if you die at age 65, you get $100,000, and they keep your cash value. If you live, they give you the typical whole life policy. The cash value at 65 is worth 50% of the face value of the policy. So you'd have $50,000 in your savings program you would get, and you would lose your life insurance. You pay for two things and you only get one. See, our company believes in buy term and invest the difference. You pay for two things and you get two. You buy insurance, let's say you've got $100 a month, you want to put in insurance investment, you put $20 with our insurance company over here, and you buy $100,000 worth of term insurance. Now, you know what? Our $100,000 spends just as good as their $100,000, you know? See, if something happens to you and our insurance company gives your wife a check for $100,000, that buys the same amount of groceries. Ain't that something? So anytime you die, for that $20, you get $100,000. Now, in addition to that, though, we take this $80 and we put it over here into a mutual fund with an IRA or a 401k where you get tax advantages and all this kind of stuff. And instead of it being worth like $50,000 down here, it's worth like $325,000. Wow. We're not talking about nickel and dimes, right? Let's say at age 65, You die, you get the $100,000 from the insurance company. Then you write the investment company, they send you $325,000, a total of $425,000 versus $100,000. If you live, you get the $325,000, and if you want to, you can keep your insurance. You pay for two things and you get two. Ain't that something? Now, let's stop a minute. Now, does that blow you out of the water? See, folks, when you got it in your heart, you don't need nothing. It comes out, right? How can you not buy from me? Yeah, that's almost impossible. You understand that?
Yes.
It absolutely destroyed me if somebody didn't buy from me after I went through all this crap. How could you not do it? How could you keep that crap and not buy? Ain't that right?
Right.
It don't matter what you say, right? It's how you say it, right? Folks, this book here, some of you probably read it. I hope not. But this is the number one business book in the last 20 years. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He's going to come out with an 8th one. I don't know what it is. I need to get that, okay? But the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, okay? Now, like I said, the consumer spent over $8 billion last year on this kind of crap, okay? Going to sales training seminars and all that crap, okay? Now, look on your list there, and look at what he's teaching you, how to win. He ain't ever done it, so he don't know. He knows about 99%, right? But the difference is this much, ain't that right? And you won't listen to somebody that's done it, ain't that right? So here's what he believes that you ought to win. Number 1, you need to be proactive. Well, what the crap does that mean? To be proactive. Number 2, you begin with the end in mind. Now, ain't that something? Now, ain't that something? You begin with the end in mind. You put first things first. I reckon I can buy that. You think win-win. I don't know what in the crap that means, but I mean, you think win-win. Listen, number 5. You seek first to understand, then to be understood. Now, ain't that a pile of it? Now, ain't that a pile of it? Now look at number 6. Synergize. To win, you need to learn how to synergize. Now, what does that mean? Now, what in the crap does that mean? What's that got to do with, hey, this is what you need to understand, ain't that right? You getting screwed, ain't that right? Ain't that right? Hey, and number 7, and his 7th habit of highly effective people is you sharpen the saw. Ain't that something? Ain't that, you think you need to teach your people to sharpen the saw? Huh? Now look at old Tom Hopkins. Now, I don't know him, Tom Hopkins. I don't even know him. Okay? And I don't want to know him. All right? But anytime somebody tries to teach you what to say, what questions, you know somebody don't know nothing. You understand that? Right? See, folks, these kind of people, see if this makes sense to you. It's like mixing oil and water. When you're trying to capture the heart of somebody and you've put business principles first, it's like mixing oil and water. Number 1, you recruit a different kind of person. They got a little hard edge to them. You know, they got to make $100,000 the first year. They can't, ain't that right? You know? And they're always interested in the money. They take shortcuts and they screw people and right? But look at Tom Hopkins, his 10 principles. How to make a positive initial contact. What to say to pique their interest. The right words to say to get. Putting people at ease. Asking the right questions to learn. The words and action necessary to present. What to say and do to answer. How to ask. The implementation of strategies. Is that a pile of it?
Yeah.
Now, Sam Walton, I had lunch with old Sam one day. He's a pretty successful guy, right? If you met him, you'd say, he just like aren't we, just an average, ordinary guy on the outside. Sam Walton wrote his 10 principles. See if you see any different. Commit to your business. Believe in it more than anybody else. Share your profits with your associates. Motivate your partners. Money and ownership aren't enough. Communicate everything you possibly can. Appreciate everything your associates do in business. A paycheck and stock options will buy one kind of loyalty, but all of us like to be told how much somebody appreciates what we do for them. Celebrate your successes. Listen to everyone in your company. Exceed your customers' expectations. Control your expenses better than the competition. Swim upstream. Whatever the competition's doing, go find a better way to do it. Folks, when you're building a team, you've got to capture your people's heart. When you capture the heart of a person, you capture the person. And you don't need tricks. You don't need gimmicks. You don't need all this. See, the best training in the world, folks, is to watch a pro make a presentation across the kitchen table with a live prospect. You understand that? But now I want to talk to you about some specific principles now in how you capture people's heart. The number one thing I learned in coaching football and coaching A.O. Williams is building relationships of trust with your coaches and players is everything. Listen to me, folks. If your players and coaches don't trust you, you can't win. Listen to me, folks. If you don't trust your players and coaches, you can't win. Building relationships of trust where you believe in each other and you trust in each other is the way you win in business. You see, folks, nobody's ever accomplished anything by themselves. Think about this. If you've ever accomplished anything that was really important to you in your life, you always had somebody that believed in you and trusted you, and you believed in them and trusted them. See, I had many, many relationships like that in my life. The most important was Coach Taylor, my only hero in life. All I wanted to be was like Coach Taylor. He meant everything to me. During this 4-month period of time, I told you in September 1976, when I made up my mind after being 4 years with ITT and 3 years at Waddell & Reed, that I wanted to build a company where salespeople are king, a company that took on the life insurance industry and just see what we can do. And I couldn't find any company that would take our business. It was probably the most frustrating period of my life, and had to start out with this little old company, Financial Assurance. It was just licensed in 13 states, didn't have no money, didn't have no nothing, but that was the only one that would touch us with a 10-foot pole. When I had finally designed A.O. Williams with Bill Atkins, and we had everything in place and we were ready to go, February 9, 1977, I picked up the phone and I called Bob Strader, the National Sales Director at Waddell & Reed, and I said, "Bob, I'm gone." It was like a 30-second conversation, and he didn't like me and I didn't like him, so that made him happy, I'm sure. We hung up that phone and World War III broke out. Because I had planned the few weeks before, I had my war plan. I knew they were going to send their people down here, and I knew who they were going to go after and try to keep and what they were going to offer them and all that kind of stuff, And so I had a plan. And quite frankly, folks, I didn't know I could work so hard. For those next 3 or 4 weeks, I would literally get up early in the morning. I would go for 10 or 12 or 14 hours. I'd get home at 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. And I'd have 15 telephone calls, said, "Call me no matter what time you get in, I'd get a couple hours sleep, and I'd hit it the next day. Rusty Crossland, one of the original 7 RVPs, a giant, just like Mike in our company, was
was at that time he was on a special program at Waddell and Reed. Rusty was a very gifted person as a leader. He was a former basketball coach. I recruited him in the business. Rusty had a special program where they were trying to recruit full-time professional people, and they picked Rusty out as the office they were going to experiment with this pilot program. You know, so they paid Rusty all his expenses and gave him salaries to hire people, and he was over there doing this thing. He had a real high profile in the company, and it built up a good relationship with some of the home office people. They thought he was a real hero, and he was. And so I thought Rusty would be, I had it figured out who was going to come real quickly and who was going to take a little bit longer to come, you know. And I had Rusty pegged. I thought it was going to take a few weeks before, you know, I had a chance to get him, you know, because I thought his answer to me was going to be, you know what, I got to think about this. So I would call somebody. I would go spend about 15 or 30 minutes with somebody and tell them I had a little old game plan, you know, and I'd be honest with them. I said, look, if we make it big, it's going to be a monster. But I said the odds are probably like this of us making it. I told every one of them that. I told them that for a couple, 3 years, quite frankly. So I called Rusty and I said, Rusty, I want to meet you and Teresa at your house at 1:30. So I pull in his driveway, I get out of the car, and in my mind, I know Rusty's going to take a few weeks, you know, to make up this decision because it's a big move. Here the presidents of the new companies telling me probably odds like this, us not going to make it. He's got a high-profile position. They're paying all his expenses, giving him salaries to hire people and all that kind of stuff. And I sit down and explain to him in about 15 minutes what A.O. Williams was and how we were going to build this company. And Rusty looked me in the eye, and he didn't even blink an eye. He said, I'm in. It tears me up today to think about it. See, that's what it's all about. Bill Arenda, who y'all know, another giant in the company. Bill was the guy that I picked out on Friday night at every fast start school for years to wind up because he was such a dynamic speaker and just got everybody all motivated and whatnot. And Bill was a division manager under Jenny Carter. When I announced that 30-second telephone call, when I called Waddell and Reed, told them I was leaving, you know, they got a team of their executives in Kansas City on a plane, flew down to the hotel right across the street from the Waddell and Reed office. They got another airplane and brought a team of people down from Continental Investment Corporation, the parent company in Boston, Massachusetts, down to a hotel. They set up war quarters in their hotel right there, you know. And I was in my car bouncing around. And, I talked to Bill Arenda. And they had talked to Bill Arenda. And they had offered Bill Arenda my job, the vice president in charge of the Southeast, $100,000 salary, all his expenses. So I sit down with Bill Arenda and I tell him the A.O. Williams plan, and I say, Bill, the odds are like this of us making it. If we make it big, it's going to be unbelievable. I can't bring in as an RVP, Bill. You deserve it. But that would devastate Jenny Carter's income. So I had to bring Bill Arenda in as a division manager. And I said, just trust me, Bill. It's going to be big. And Bill Arenda, being offered now the regional vice president's position of the Southeast, $100,000 a year salary, all his expenses paid, didn't even bat an eye. He said, I'm in. You have any idea why we beat Prudential and 2,000 other companies? You have any idea? See, Prudential was out there selling insurance to make a living. We were selling insurance to correct an injustice. This was more than a business to us. About 2 or 3 years later, I was killing myself. We were just growing. We always had 10 times more business. We needed 10 times more money. We needed 10 times more everything, you know. And I needed somebody in the home office that really understood me, that could talk to the home office people and talk to the people in the field. And when we got ready to start A.O. Williams, I called Bob Miller, who was a former basketball coach. He was part-time at Waddell and Reed at that time. And he and I had become great friends, and another giant in A.O. Williams. And I said, Bob, I want you to come full time. I said, now the chances are about like this of us making it, but I want you to give up your basketball job. I want you to come full time. And I'm going to give you an RVP contract. See, this is, boy, when you're a leader, sometimes you have to make gut-wrenching decisions. Here I make Bill Arunda, who just turned $100,000 a year salary out, a division manager. And I said, now, Bob, if this ever gets out, I'd be dead. You know what I'm saying? But I want to experiment with you. I want to see if we can build a special pilot program down here where we can utilize this, because I want to take A.O. Williams all over the world. And I want to experiment with your organization. And so Bob comes full time, and he does very well for a couple, 3 years. I called Bob on the phone one day. I said, Bob, I need your help so bad. I need you to come up here and be an in-house national sales director. I just got to have you. Bob, I don't have any money to pay you. I don't know how I'm going to pay you. We don't have anything, okay? But all I can tell you is if we make it, I think you ought to be amongst the highest paid people in our company. Bob Miller hung up that phone, told his wife to pack her bags, and they moved to Atlanta, Georgia. Can you believe that, folks? Can you believe that? I had heart surgery 3 months ago. Get a call from Frank Deneen one day, one of the original RVPs. And Frank wanted to check on me and all this. And he said, Art, he said, you know what? If you told me tomorrow that you were opening up a new company in Australia, I'd pack up my 6 kids and we'd be on a boat to Australia. Does that give you an idea? Building relationships of trust is everything. You win with your heart, not your head. How do you build these relationships of trust? You can't demand trust. You can't demand loyalty. You can't demand love. You can't demand honesty. You can't fake integrity. You can't fake belief. How do you get people to trust you? Number one, you got to be sincere. Number two, you got to always look for the good things in people. As a coach, you got to always look for the strengths in people. You can't let the losers and the negative people and the dishonest people and the unethical people make you lose faith in people. That's hard. You see, even if you recruit with a heart, you're still going to have maybe 1% of the people out there are going to be the wrong kind of people, and they're going to do bad things, and they're going to hurt you. But you can't give up on the 99% of the people, the goodness in them. You got to show your people you really care about them, that you care about their family, that you care about their dreams. You got to make your people a friend. You got to make your people a friend. You got to love your people and believe in your people in good times and bad times. I told Art and April when they were coming along as kids, I said, I want to tell you something now. You're going to do some bad things in your life. You're going to do some things that you're ashamed of, and you're going to do some things that your mom and daddy are ashamed of. You're going to do some things, and we're going to be embarrassed. And you're going to be embarrassed. And you're going to be hurt. And you're going to be crying. And we're going to be crying. And you're going to have some people that take advantage of you and use you and hurt you bad, really bad sometimes. But I want you kids to know this. There ain't nothing you can ever do that would cause your mom and daddy not to love you. Not to be there with you. I don't care how tough it gets. I don't care what kind of tight spot you're in. There's 2 people in this world that you can count on, fighting for you. We might be crying. We might be embarrassed. We might be hurting, but we love you. You've got to have an attitude to build these relationships of trust. It's got to be for real that you're working for your people. There's nothing wears me out more than when I see leaders that say, you guys work hard so I can build a bigger base shop, so I can make more money, so I can win a contest. If that ever crosses your mind, you ain't worthy of being a person's coach. A coach always works for his people. You work for your people to make more money, for your people to get promotions, for your people to win contests.
You've got to prove to your people that you're totally 100% committed, that you're going to go down with the ship. People won't ultimately follow a negative, dull, disillusioned, frustrated dadgum crybaby. Now, folks, let me tell you a few rewards that when you win, when you get old like me and you've won, let me tell you some rewards that are worth as much as being financially independent and all this kind of stuff. I had a former guy at A.O. Williams. He's no longer in the company. He went out and did his own thing. And he wrote a book. And in the dedication of his book, he said this about Art Williams. He said, Art Williams cared about my family, my dream, and as my leader, helped show me how I could make my dreams come true. He aimed for my heart, and I never forgot. What's that worth? For somebody to feel that way about you? The first seminar I did this year, at the banquet, David Landrum got up and said, you know, next to my dad, Art Williams meant the most to me. What's that worth? 2 seminars ago, there was a young lady sitting on the front table right here in a smaller room downtown. And she wrote me this letter. She said, Dear Art, from the moment I walked into the welcome reception last night, I knew this event was going to change my life. Just seeing you both live, the words you speak, seeing you both so humble, so genuine, so incredibly warm and caring was enough to fuel me to continue the fight to financial independence. Then we got into the locker room. I got there early to get the seat as close to you as possible. I'm eating up every word, every story, every example, every tough time you went through, every caring thought you share, every tear you almost start to shed. What's that worth? Folks, that's it. That's everything. That's the difference in being the best you can be, in building the biggest team you can build, in having your people have the most success. It begins with the heart. You capture the heart, you capture the person. Number 2, to capture the heart, you've got to sell the goodness and rightness first. See, Prudential sells life insurance to make a living. A.O. Williams sells it to correct an injustice. See, folks, we made it personal. We made it personal. You can't have some nebulous thing out there. You got to have an enemy. You got to make it personal. I never forgave them for what they did to my mama. I never forgave them for what they did to me and Angela and my babies. I made it personal. There's a goodness in A.O. Williams. Were we perfect? No. Did we screw up a bunch? But there was a goodness. There was a rightness. It was something you could hang on to. You could sink your teeth into. 3 Sundays ago, I went to a meeting at Highlands Country Club. That's a country club I belong to. It's right over there. They had a guest speaker who was president of Walk Through the Bible, a big ministry worldwide. His name is Chip Ingram. He's got one of the largest radio ministries in the United States. He came from California, by the way, somewhere up around Carmel. And he was a speaker that night. So I was out there eating dinner and got time for him to speak. And he was telling his personal story. He said, you know, I was a basketball coach in Kentucky. I had a wife and 2 children. And all of a sudden, one day, I got called to the ministry. I had $700 in the bank, all the money I had. And I applied to school in Dallas, Texas. He said, I didn't know anybody in Texas, didn't have a job, had a wife and 2 kids, had $700. But I was called into the ministry. I had to go. I gave up my coaching job, put all my belongings in a trailer. We went to Dallas, Texas, got me an apartment down there and figured out it was going to take $900 a month to pay my bills, to put food on the table for my kids.
But I was going to school. It was going to take me 3 years to graduate, and I was going to school, all day. And so I only had, 3 or 4 hours a day to work. And I found a little company called A.L. Williams. And for 3 years, I made $900. Today, he touches the lives of millions and millions of people. There's a goodness in this company. Were we perfect? No. Did we screw up? You betcha. But there was a goodness. There was something you could tie to. There was something you could believe in. To capture people's heart, you've got to have a clear and powerful vision. February 10, 1977, we had 2 parts to our vision that I explained to everybody, then everybody explained to everybody. See, to build a team, you got to have everybody on the team that understands the vision, believes in the vision, and follows the vision. And there were 2 parts. 50% of the vision of A.L. Williams is that you were part of some great event. When we recruited somebody to A.L. Williams, we said, I want you to know you're part of some great event. We're out there correcting an injustice. I want you to know we're going to destroy the concept of trash value life insurance. I want you to know one day we're going to kick Prudential's butt. You're part of some great event. I said, one day, this little peanut of a company, these little 85 people here in Georgia, most of it in Atlanta, Georgia, one day, everybody in the life insurance industry is going to know and fear A.L. Williams. You're part of some great event. Well, you saw in their own words what we did, right? Became number 1, changed the industry. You sell 86% trash value, now it's down to 20%. But think about this fear. Think about this fear. Probably 2, 3 years later, after we founded A.L. Williams, we were still only in about 3 or 4 or 5 states. But folks, this network I talked about, this local life underwriters, state, national, Joseph Bell, all this kind of stuff. Do you know, folks, in states like California where we were not in, you could go into any town, any city, and go into any insurance office. Weren't even in California. Weren't even in Oregon. We were not in Idaho. But you could go into Idaho, and you could go to Boise, Idaho, and you could go to the local Prudential office, and you say, have you guys ever heard of A.L. Williams? And the veins on their neck would bust out, and their face would get red. The whole industry knew and feared A.L. Williams. You're part of some great event. This is a great event. 2 years ago, I was in South Florida. Angela and I are really legal residents of Palm Beach. We spend the winter down there. John Roy's one of my close friends, and I was talking with John Roy. And he's financially independent, and all that kind of stuff, still in the company. And John said, this was 2 years ago. This was 12 years after they changed the name of the company from A.L. Williams to PSF. And he went to the barbershop where he'd gone for like 20 years. The guy was cutting his hair. In the chair next to him, there was another gentleman that had just moved into the area. And John got through, same guy had been cutting his hair for all these years. He said, John, you ought to meet this guy. He just moved in. He's in the same business you're in. The guy picks his head up, stakes his hand out to John and says, I'm Bill Jones with Life of Virginia. Who are you with? And John looked him in the eye, didn't put his hand out, and said, I'm with your worst nightmare. Hey, listen, 12 years after the name change, this guy said, you don't mean A.L. Williams, do you? Is that unbelievable? Is that unbelievable? 4 years ago down in Palm Beach, there's a very prestigious club called the Everglades Club. I had some friends that sponsored me and Angela to the club, and they blackballed me. And my friends were so embarrassed and humiliated because, they loved me and they didn't like it. And I told them, I said, I promise you, that's the best thing that could have happened to me. For me to know they still remember. You understand that? Hey, 2 years ago, Wade Hampton, great golf course, Lawrence, right over here, 15 miles away. I had 2 friends sponsor me, a doctor friend from Augusta and 2 friends at Highlands Country Club, 3 people. And I got blackballed by an insurance guy in Atlanta, Georgia. And they were mad and humiliated. I said, listen, I promise you that's the best thing that could have happened to me. I want you to understand, that's the best thing that could have happened to me. They still remember. So you know what? I went out and bought a golf course. The second part of our vision, we had a vision to be part of some great event. It was just not a business. It was not a way to make money. This was a great event. This was a great happening in America. You were going to be part of some magical, one-of-a-kind thing. And the second thing was we want your family to be financially independent, not my family. We want your family. Our goal is for your family to be financially independent, to be in a situation where nobody can put their thumb on you and squeeze you. And you know what, folks? We might have been the company. I don't know. If we were not the company, we were certainly amongst the companies that produced more financially independent families during that 20 years than anybody ever did. In addition to building an organization that would give your family a chance to become financially independent, we started a public company in 1981. If you were an NSD and got the original stock in that company in 1981, put $10,000 in it, in 2001, 20 years later, it was worth $6,216,000, a 62,700% return, 39% per year. From 81 to 89, we had a 52.23% return annually. From 89 to 2001, a 31.7% return. Isn't that unbelievable? See, people want to be their own boss. People want to control their own destiny. People want to be in a situation financially one day where nobody can squeeze them. And we give you that. In addition to giving you that kind of financial opportunity, we give you a chance to join some great event, some big event. Number 4, to capture people's heart, you got to have a plan. You got to have a plan. I went to a meeting with ITT and a guy read Think and Grow Rich, and he said, you ought to get that book and read it. I got the book and read it, and I found what I thought was the single thing all successful people did. And you have a plan. See, I never came in this business, folks. I was making $10,700 a year coaching. I never came in this business to be a millionaire. That never entered my mind. You understand, when you grow up in Cairo, Georgia, your folks hadn't made any money. I was a football coach, a teacher. I didn't see myself as a millionaire. I didn't think people like me could be a millionaire. You understand that? I didn't see that for me. I didn't see making $300,000 a year, $500,000 a year, or $1 million a year. I didn't see that for me. You understand that? I didn't think somebody like me, I don't feel like anybody's better than me. You understand that? But I just didn't see that was me. I didn't think I was capable of making $500,000 a year. I didn't think I was supposed to live in some big home, the biggest home in town. See, A.L. Williams was not built for you to become a millionaire. It was not built for you to make a big income. It was not built for you to have the biggest home in the town. A.L. Williams was built for you to become financially independent. Financially independent. And I found this out and I put it in common sense.
And in this book, old Napoleon Hill said, all these successful people I know, they have a plan of being financially independent. And so there's a number of steps, and I'm going to give it to you. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, okay, but I just want to give you the idea. He said, you got to first have, it's got to be a specific thing that you can see being financially independent, okay? So I started thinking, I said, well, I'm making $10,000 a year coaching and another $12,000 or $15,000 a year part-time income I'm saving. So if I had a pot of money out there that would give me $30,000 a year income, and I'd never touch that money would just go on forever, then if I don't change my standard of living, I would be financially independent. So all of a sudden, I begin to zero in on what would be financially independent for me. I'm not, I see so many people destroyed because they're comparing themselves to this guy making $2 million a year, or $500,000 a year, or driving in this Mercedes and all this kind of stuff. See, you've got to compare yourself to you and your dreams and your goals. I know people that have made millions of dollars that ain't got a pot to pee in. You understand that? I know people that make $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year that ain't close to being financially independent. I know some people make $50,000 a year that are financially independent. Financial independence is the key. Does that make sense? So all of a sudden, see, I didn't think about being a millionaire. I didn't see Art Williams making $500,000 a year. But all of a sudden, I said, if I could get a pot of money out here, and that'd have to, so I'd got to get $300,000. So if I could get a pot of money out here at $300,000 at 10% interest, that would give me my $30,000, and that money machine would go on forever. And if I don't change my standard of living, I'm financially independent. Nobody can put their thumb on me and squeeze me. Ain't that something? And so he says, you got to figure out a time. So I was 27 years old. I said I would give myself 10 years. At 37, I wanted to be financially independent. Then he said you had to make a plan. Like I said, I had $42,000, and if I could get 10% interest on that, my mutual fund's doing a little bit better than that. In 10 years, that'd be $100,000. So at $300,000, I was $200,000 short. And I took my compound interest table, worked it back, and said if I could save $1,000 a month, which I was doing, times 10% interest gives me $200,000. I was already doing it. All of a sudden, I figured it out in 10 years, how if I just did what I was doing right now, I'd be financially independent. But if I tried to think about being a millionaire or make $500,000 a year, comparing myself to all the other leaders in the company, that would have blown me away. Do you understand that? But I figured out my goal of financial independence. And I figured out my plan. Folks, I cannot count the times I wanted to quit and go get a good job. I can't tell you the number of nights I put my head on a pillow, dying inside, wanting to quit this business and go back and coach football. I can't begin to tell you the number of times. And the thing that kept me going was this dream of being financially independent. And boy, when I wanted to quit, I'd get my old plan out. You know, he said you got to write it down and you got to think about it every day. I put it in my daily calendar. And when I was on the throne doing my business, you know, I'd read a paper, I'd pick my old pen out of my pocket and I'd figure out how I was doing. And boy, when I wanted to quit, I'd say, you know, Art, you only got 7 years to go. And it'd keep me going. And then next time I wanted to quit, Art, you only got 5 years to go. And it'd keep me going for another day. Say, Art, you only got 3 years to go. When I say A.L. Williams was built for average and ordinary people, you know what I'm talking about, right? I'm talking about average and ordinary people on the outside, but buddy, you cut them open. They're the most wonderful people in the world, you know? So anyway, moving on now. Number 5, to capture the hearts of your people, you've got to become a coach, not a boss. And a coach's number one responsibility is to make people feel like a stud. Folks, you've got to have the ability as the head coach of your team to make all of your players feel like a stud. You know, you might have a wide receiver that runs a 4.7 40 and you need a 4.3 40 guy, okay? But you got a 4.7 guy out there, okay? Well, you can't take, well, you're slow, you got sorry hands, you ain't no good, you know, I wish I had somebody else. I mean, he's your player, he's your split end, right? And you got to make him feel like he's an All-American, you know? He's all-world, he can be all-conference, you know? You might not be as fast as some of these other jokers, but you know, they won't catch the tough pass across the middle. You know, somebody hits them, then they'll flinch or whatnot, okay? And you've got to have the ability to make all of your people feel like a stud, to see the best in everybody. We recruited over 2 million people when I was at A.O. Williams. I've never met anybody yet that didn't have some good qualities. Now, there've been a few I had to look hard at, you know, to find them, right? But you know, out of 2 million people, every person, every piece of flesh out there, folks, has got some good quality. And as a coach, it's your responsibility to look for the strengths, to look for the good things in people and build those up, okay? Let me give you a couple of facts in being a coach. Fact number 1, people respond to people that see their strengths and think they're wonderful. Folks, do you understand that people can tell how you feel about them just the way you look at them, the way you talk to them? Do you understand that? You can say the right words and all this kind of stuff, but if it's phony, people can pick up on that a mile away, right? And for you to capture somebody's heart, you've got to think this person is wonderful, that they're special, that you're proud to have them on your team. Fact number 2, you've got to love your people, and it's got to be sincere, and you've got to have the ability to show it. You've got to have the ability to show it. If you can't show your love, now that don't mean you got to go up and hug somebody and kiss them. Nothing wrong with that, you know, and all that kind of stuff too. But folks, there's got to be love. There's got to be emotion. And as a coach, to build those trusting relationships that'll carry you through tough times out there, you've got to have the ability to show people you love them, to show them you believe in them, and to show them you care about them, and to make them feel like a stud. I took my hero, Coach Taylor, and other coaches I knew, and then I thought about some bosses I knew, and I could name a couple of names, and y'all would know them too. And I tried just to list down. I took 3 pages. I tried to list down. I think this would be a great thing for you to have somewhere in your desk, and every now and then, just go look at it in some of your quiet time, okay? And just look at the contrast between a coach and a boss. Let me just give you a few. Coaches make you feel good. Bosses make you feel bad. Coaches look for the good things in you. Bosses look for your bad things. Coaches are always positive. Bosses are always negative. Coaches are always excited. Bosses always business. Coaches have an enemy. Bosses have a job. Coaches have fun. Bosses are always serious. Coaches want you to win. Bosses want you to help him win. Coaches want you to be a hero. Bosses wants to be the hero. Coaches are really sincerely interested in you, in your family, in your dreams. Bosses are interested in only the bottom line. Coaches are warriors. Bosses are politicians. Coaches are not afraid to be controversial. Bosses are always afraid to rock the boat. Coaches want you to make a difference. Bosses wants to make a profit. How about that? Just a great resource. If you want to win, if you want to be a great leader and build a great team, you've got to become a great coach. Number 6, to capture the heart of your people, you must give them a chance to build their own company. See, A.O. Williams was built to give people like me and you a chance to build a company within a company. Folks, for 20 years, when I left coaching, for 20 years in this business, every single day, I thought about building my company. I thought about building my business. I didn't want to be a salesperson. I hate sales. I hate the insecurity of sales. I hate the rejection of sales, right? I mean, salespeople are unemployed every day you wake up, correct? You don't make a sale, you don't eat, right? And then there's only one person. Therefore, you have a limited amount of time to produce a limited amount of business, therefore a limited income. Isn't that correct? So you've got a very insecure income because it comes from one person. If you become disabled, you become sick, your income stops, right? And then you have a very limited opportunity to make lots of money because there's just one person producing, right? Now, it's hard work recruiting greenies, right? Listen to all their stupid questions, right? Field training them over and over again, right? But what I wanted to do was to build a secure income. I wanted to override hundreds and then thousands of people, that if I became sick and I became disabled, my income would continue on, correct? That's one reason I was willing to work extra hard. It's harder to build a company than just to make a living building a salesperson, right? And then I wanted an opportunity to have an ever-increasing kind of income. I didn't want any ceiling placed on my income out there, right? If I was willing to continue to work and continue to expand and continue to grow, that I wanted that opportunity. And by building a company within a company, that gave me that opportunity, right? See, I found out that people want three things in their life. Number one, they want to work for themselves. Everybody wants to work for themselves, and I give you that chance. When you come to work with A.O. Williams, you're not working for me, I'm working for you. You're in business for yourself. You're building your own company within a company. And number two, I'm going to give you a chance to build total financial independence for your family. That's what people want. They want financial freedom, right? They don't want to be under somebody's thumb. And number three, they want to work at something that they believe in. Does that make sense? And you know, one thing that I never forgot at A.O. Williams, it just blew me away. It's another thing like that magic of compound interest that I never could understand, how $1,000 invested at 5% for 70 years. If you just leave that $1,000, it grows to $30,000. But that same $1,000 at 10%, you leave it there for 70 years, is $750,000. That is absolutely mind-boggling. And folks, it's the same way in growing by multiplication, right? If you go out here and you recruit 3 people, and you take those people and show them how to recruit 3 people, and you do that 10 times, that's 59,000 people, okay? So it's one of those things like magic or compound. It's absolutely magical when you sell this dream to other people and you have them understand their goal is to build a company within a company, and we grow by multiplication, right? And so you recruit somebody, they recruit somebody, they recruit somebody. It is unbelievable how this thing can explode. I mean, we started as a peanut in Atlanta, Georgia. Then before I knew it, I was all over the United States and Canada. Isn't that just unbelievable? To capture people's heart, you give them a chance to build their own company. They're not working for you. You're working for them. Next, you've got to always be positive and always be excited. Folks, when you're the head coach, a bad attitude will cause you failure faster than any other single thing. You can't ever let your people see you down. You can't ever let your people see you give up. Now, does that mean, folks, you don't kick people in the butt? You know better than that, right?
Right.
That a person, a player, cannot be the best he can be without a coach challenging him. You understand that? You need Coach Williams to kick you in the butt. Ain't that right? Some of you came over here and you weren't as emotional as you need to be, right? That you weren't as focused as you need to be, right? And you need to spend a couple of days with me. Let me get inside you, right? Now, I can be tough in a positive way. Does that make sense? It burns my butt when people can't see that, you know? And I don't have any time to spend with some of these people. They say, well, Art, he's so negative. I ain't ever negative. I ain't ever down. You don't ever see me quit. Now, buddy, you can see me crawling your crap big time. You understand that? But I'm doing it, hey, I'm doing it with the attitude of making you better. Ain't that right? Now, how can you hate me for that? Ain't that right? Do you want to be average and ordinary?
No.
Do you want to just get by? Well, when you're doing things that ain't right, when you ain't giving it the right kind of effort, do you want me to get in your crowd? You better believe it, right? That's positive, okay? But there's a difference in showing people give up and showing people quit. Let me give you the greatest example I've ever seen in my lifetime was Jimmy Carter. As president, you know, we had interest rates that were over 20% and oil, you know, was over whatever it was, $20 a barrel or whatever it was. And he got on TV and he said, our country is in a malaise. This country is in a world of hurt. And folks, even the Democrats would not recognize him. The only time he's ever been allowed on the Democratic platform at the presidential nomination deal, you know, was last time with John Kerry. Before it just took 20 or 30 years for even the Democrats. I still can't stand the guy, you know? But even the Democrats couldn't stand him for 20 or 30 years just because he got on TV and made that one speech. He showed weakness. Right. I went to church in Loganville, Georgia with my granddaughter that's married now this past number of months. And the preacher was talking that Sunday, and he had a bad year in terms of giving. They were behind on their budget and whatnot. And he got up there and he got really down and he said, look, maybe it's time for me to move on. He said, maybe y'all need a new preacher here. And he's still there, and I know him, and he's a good man. But folks, you can't do that. I mean, I honestly thought I was going to die on the job at A.O. Williams. I never planned to get off the treadmill. You know, I thought I was here forever. And it never even entered my thought. So you never could have thought that I was going to ever leave, okay? And so you can't ever let your people see you down. Let your people see you quit. Yes, you got to be tough. Yes, you got to be emotional, okay? But don't ever show a negative attitude. Next is you got to recruit the right kind of players. Coach Bryant, the great football coach at Alabama, says, you know, there are three kind of players out there we can recruit. He said, number one, they're players that think they're winners. These are sort of the prima donnas, you know, the pretty people. Folks, I just can't take them, you know. I mean, these guys and gals come on board, and they are these CEOs or professional athletes, and they're people that just got to make $100,000 the first year, you know. And in my first few years in the business, they hurt me because, I mean, I was out there struggling. I was dying. I was doubting whether I was good enough to make this thing happen in business, that maybe I ought to just be a football coach. And I would go to a meeting with ITT, and I'd see this pretty guy, you know, with all this hair. You know, he'd be up there, and he'd be talking, and I'd sit out there, and I'd just be dying. I'd say, Art, you can't ever be that good. Why don't you just throw in a towel and go on back and coach football for a living? And then I whipped them all. And then somewhere along the way, I began to say, man, being pretty is a handicap. Honestly, I mean, honestly, folks, I'm not telling you. I see people with hair even this day and time right now. If you got hair, I say, ain't no way. Ain't no way. No way that guy's gonna get down there and shovel the crap like somebody like me. Ain't that right? See, there are people out there that think they're winners. They just think they're winners because they got this special degree or this beautiful body or the ability to talk or something like that, right? Coach Bryant said, I don't want those people. He said, and the second kind of people are they're losers that know they're losers. Well, folks, there's some people out there, it's sad to say, but it had been so crushed, so hurt, so disillusioned that they've just given up. And there's nothing you or anybody else can do about it. And you can't take a dud and make him a stud no matter how hard you try. So Coach Bryant says they're losers that think they're losers, and we can't win with them either. But he said the third kind of players the kind I want. Players that are not winners yet, but they want to be winners more than anything else in the world. Man, that's what I want. You show me a guy or gal, and let me tell you this. The harder you've had it, the better I like it, okay? I don't care what kind of disappointments and frustrations and all that kind of stuff you've had in your past life. If you're a good person, If you're a good family person, if you've got good morals and good character, and you've had a few tough breaks, you're my kind of guy. I want you to know that, okay? The tougher the better, right? Because, man, it's tough to win out there, right? And I love to deal with tough people, right? See, folks, listen to this, don't ever forget it. See, you don't sell insurance. You don't sell investments. You don't sell mortgages. You sell hope and opportunity. You understand that? What your job is as a head coach is you go to people out there that are frustrated, that are dying, that have been screwed and tattooed, just beat up on them so bad, they're just almost ready to chunk it in for the last time. And then Art Williams comes along, and he lifts him up, and he gives him one more chance. I was in Dallas, Texas one night. The old President Bush had a meeting out there, and I was walking into the stadium, and an usher came up to see me, and he said, "You're Art Williams. I want to shake your hand." He said, "You don't know me. I was in the real estate business in Dallas, and the real estate business went under, and I lost everything I had, and I was low as a snake." I think he said that he lost his wife. She left him, and he said, "I'm just low. I got to a point I was thinking about committing suicide. I was just so low." And he said, "Somebody told me about A.O. Williams, and I went to an A.O. Williams meeting and saw you speak." He said, "Art, I never got licensed in A.O. Williams. I never made a sale in A.O. Williams. I never recruited anybody in A.O. Williams. But A.O. Williams changed my life. A.O. Williams helped me believe in me again. And I got my real estate business going again, and now I'm on top of the world. And I owe it to A.O. Williams." Wow. Folks, that's what A.O. Williams is all about. We're about changing people's lives. We're about making people feel good about themselves again. We're about making people believe that they're special. See, at A.O. Williams, we don't sell insurance and investments. It's so much bigger than that. It's so much more important than that. We sell hope and opportunity. Isn't that exciting? See, what I'm looking for are people that, aren't packaged so pretty. But boy, there's something inside of them. See, all I ask, if you can every person, every piece of flesh that's ever been born, at one time were dreamers. I was watching 60 Minutes last night, and they were talking about Rwanda and how they're trying to kill these couple of million Africans, and the Muslims are, to purge the country of, like Hitler did the Jews and all that kind of crap. And yet they had the camera on some of the little kids out there, and they had the smile on their face, in the desert, nothing to eat, flies everywhere, just looked like, just sad, But see, everybody has hope inside of them, where they want to make a difference with their life. And see, I don't know why I'm like I am, but there's something inside of me that says, "Art, you're supposed to be somebody. You're supposed to go for it. You're supposed to make a difference with your life. My butt's always burning. Something inside of me says, "Art, don't give up. Don't quit." Those are the kind of people that you win with. To capture people's hearts, folks, you've got to become an expert on praise and recognition. Let me give you two quotes. Mary Kay, back when A.O. Williams was really busting it, there were three organizations, multi-level marketing organizations that were pretty famous around the country: Amway, A.O. Williams, and Mary Kay. They do the pink Cadillacs and all that kind of stuff. Mary Kay said, "The only thing better than sex and money is praise and recognition." How about that? Mark Twain said, "I can go 2 months on a good compliment." See, people, every person in your organization, every person in an opportunity meeting, every person at a fast start school, you got to look at them and you got to pretend there's a sign on their chest, a flashing sign that says, "Say something good to me. Make me feel special. I want to be somebody." You've got to become an expert on praise and recognition. Let me give you two secrets. Number one, you've got to praise people in public. If you want to get the most out of your praise and recognition program, always do it in public. Do it in front of their teammates. Do it in front of their family. And then number 2, be creative. One reason I love t-shirts, I even did this when I was coaching. I do it with my grandbabies right now, but just for a little t-shirt, you can put all kind of stuff on a t-shirt, right? I won't prove bad. I am somebody. Hero. We just got back from a family reunion at Amelia Island, July the 4th, and I printed t-shirts this year. Hero. My kids have t-shirts that tie in their closet, stuff I do all the time for them, right? Be creative. I mean, I've given trophies that are 6 feet tall because a guy was 6 feet tall. I've given plaques that are size of doors. We had an attack team, and I made an old black baseball bat, and put A.L. Williams attack team on it, just to be creative, right?
Right.
I would give fun awards. I don't ever do this unless somebody is okay. You don't ever give a joke award when somebody's really, really hurting big time bad, But one of my favorite one is right when you're in the middle of the pack. I mean, when you're better than the losers, but you're worse than the winners. I'd give a t-shirt that was cream of the crop. You're cream of the crop, You're better than the losers, but you ain't a winner, And I used to give a torn sweater award. I used to give, just be an old coach, I'd get a sweater and put ALW on it, and I'd take scissors and I'd cut the old holes all over the sweater, and give a torn sweater if you hadn't had a really good year, Be creative in your recognition and recognize people in public. To capture people's heart, you got to have fun to build a team. Folks, it's got to be fun. You can't have, as a coach, you got to know when to cut that tension. It's a tough business, right? I mean, your best guy quits, you get a $5,000 charge back. A client says no. I mean, it's tough, right? And you got to know as a head coach when to cut the tension, when to have fun, right? You can't work at something long enough to achieve big success if it's always serious. You're always balls to the wall, right? You've got to have fun. Early in A.L. Williams' days, thinking about Bill Arenda and Jenny Carter, back when we were scared to death every day, thought we were going to be out of business every day. We did things like in Jenny's organization, every time somebody had a birthday party, we would go celebrate it at that person's house. And then we would roast that person like Bill Arenda. We would all get up and roast his butt, and it got pretty interesting, And they really had fun roasting me, But you've got to have fun in this business, okay? Next, to capture your people's heart, you've got to be generous. You've got to have a generous heart. I tried to look up a couple of definitions of generous, and the best two I saw was to give with no monetary motive. That's generous, when you say, to give, not expecting anything monetary back from it, just to give, just out of the goodness of your heart, trying to make somebody feel good. That's pretty special, right? Folks, that's what you've got to do to your people. You've got to be generous with your people. You've got to be generous with your time. You got to be generous with your money. It would wipe me out if somebody's taking a new recruit out on a field training interview and you pull into McDonald's to get a hamburger and you want to go Dutch, Right. You got to be able to make enough money to buy him a hamburger, something like that. Now, I would tell people, I said, I'm going to give you everything I got. And I got a bunch. I'm going to give you all my effort, all my talent, all my energy, all my toughness, everything I got except my money. Now, I've given away more money and I've loaned more money than probably any of you ever will in your lifetime, but I have never loaned money to a person yet that didn't need more at some point in time. And so I want you to know, I'm going to give you everything. It don't get too tough for me, okay? I'm going to be there with you. We're going to see this thing through. I'm going to help you get to the top and win, okay? But I want you to know you've got to solve your money problem, okay? I'm not going to loan you money because all I'm doing is delaying a problem. Sometime, at some point, you've got to make up your mind you will never get there again, okay? You're never going to put yourself in that situation again. But you've got to have a generous spirit with your people. Next, to capture people's heart, you've got to love your people and love your company. Mickey Mantle said something that always meant something to me. He said, I love hitting a baseball. I wake up every day. I get excited about going out to the ballpark and hitting a baseball. I just love hitting a baseball. He said, when it rains a game out, I get angry because I want to go out and hit a baseball. I love hitting a baseball. I don't like it. If you like something, you'll never be good at it. You got to love it. Folks, you've got to love your people. You've got to love by term and invest the difference. You've got to love A.O. Williams. And last, to capture people's heart. Folks, you can never, never, never stop selling the vision. You can't ever stop selling the vision. 50% of it is we have an enemy. You know, we're part of some special event, some special happening. We're out there to correct an injustice. We're going to kick Prudential's butt. And then 50% of it is your personal goal of building financial independence. You know, most people that go in business for themselves, they have to go out and borrow $100,000 or $200,000. And then the odds against them making it are nil, and they wind up just hugely in debt. With me, all you got to do is pay $100 or $200 for your license. And then you get to use everything we've built for 30-something years to build your own company within a company. And then I'm going to help you make a goal where you can be financially free, where you will never be under anybody's thumb. You'll never have any more financial pressures in your life.